Good afternoon, board members and general public. We're glad that you could be here for our Pender County Board of Education meeting for August the 8th. At this time, I determined there is a quorum, so we will begin. Let's stand for our Pledge of Allegiance and then our invocation. Mr. Hall, if you'll lead us in our pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's pray. We ask, dear God, that you give us wisdom in these days of darkness. Guide us in what is best for the children of Pender County. Amen. Amen. Board members, you've had an opportunity to look at the agenda that was sent out to you. Is there any modifications to the agenda before we have a motion to approve it?
I've got a modification I'd like to request.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hall.
Under information, I'd like to make 7.11 just a discussion and a couple of questions on the PACES and other after-school programs.
Okay, so under information 7.11 after-school programs, if I can just list it that way.
Yep, that's fine.
Seven 7.11 after-school programs. I have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda to add 7.11. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board members, are there any other changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda, add 9.7 to the action agenda for sponsorship for the buses.
Okay. 9.7 action bus sponsorship. There's a motion on the floor to add this as an action item. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Board members, is there any other amendments, changes to the agenda? Not hearing any.
Yeah, I want to make one more action item, be 9.8. Motion for reconsideration of the electric buses.
I'll
second.
Phil can.
We have a motion on the floor, second by Mr. Springer, second by Mr. Cordero. Motion for reconsideration of the electric bus. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any other changes, board members, to the agenda? Not hearing any. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
We have a motion on the floor. May I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to go right along then. Recognitions. Is there any tonight?
We do. We have one. So I have Dominic Bates come on up. He's got another member of his group that is doing excellent work and deserves a little bit more recognition than what she got last month.
All right, so I just want to introduce you guys to Miss Denise Pollock. Miss Pollock she sets a super standard of excellence for herself and her colleagues. And she's just always, she's the kind of person that if you ask her to do it, she's going to do it, and it's going to be over the top, and it's going to be great. But everything that she does is for students, because students is at the very center and core of her, and she really leads our team. And so we are very appreciative of you. But let me tell you what she is being recognized for. Miss Pollock She is a leader not only in our region, but in our state, and not only here locally in our school system. So she represented Pender County Schools on a PBM data team, which is a state team for CTE. She also, this upcoming year, will be the president of the Southeast region for curriculum, instructional management coordinators and CTE. And at our CTE conference, our state CTE conference, a couple of weeks ago, she was recognized as the Southeast CIMC of the year. And so congratulations, and it's well deserved.
We'll get a picture with you if that's okay.
It is okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Congratulations.
Thank you all, thank you.
This time, board members, part of our agenda is for public comment. Let me read this, and then I think we have one that's called in. The Pender County Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during its regular scheduled meetings. The public comment period is open for members of the public, including parents and students, to voice their compliments, concerns, and complaints about performance of school personnel, implementation of board policy, the quality of educational programs or school facilities. According to our policy 2310, presentations are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Obscene, vulgar, profane statements or perceived to be disruptive or threatening to the operation of this meeting will not be permitted. So we'll have the first one that's called in.
My name is Ashley Milam. I just wanted to thank the board for not taking another list from an outside political group. I noticed the agenda today mentions a discussion about policies 3200 and 3210. Please leave as is and do not consider adding further restrictions, taking more rights away from parents to decide what their child can read. These policies have been in place for over a decade and have served Pender County and our community appropriately. Thank you.
Okay, and we have 2 individuals in the audience who have signed up for tonight. The first is Ms. Sandra Malpas.
Well, good evening. As a retired Pender County school media specialist, I've been closely following the book banning attempts in our school system and across the country. I've read Pender County's revised policy 3210, parental inspection of and objection to instructional materials. I think overall it's a good policy, and thanks to everyone for their hard work in developing that. Parents have the right to inspect instructional materials and library books. If they don't want their children to read a particular book, they have that right. But they do not have the right to tell other parents what their children can read. 3210 states that a parent can file an objection to a particular educational material by filling out and submitting a reconsideration form. There is no mention of political groups, social groups, or anyone in the general population being able to file an objection or hand over a list of books they want removed from library shelves. It states that books and other instructional material can be removed only for legitimate educational reasons and subject to the limitations of the First Amendment. Instructional materials or books should never be removed just because one person or a small group of people object to them. I was disappointed that 8 books out of the 42 on the list presented to you by an outside political group were weeded. But I understand that the middle school committees that made those decisions decided the books were more suitable for high school, and hopefully that's where they went. The schools that have decided that one or more of those books should stay on their library shelves should be allowed to keep them. They know their students and their needs more than anyone else. Just because a book is removed from one school does not mean it should be removed from all schools. Ordering that a book be removed from all schools is book banning, not weeding, and we were told that no books were banned. There are no pornographic or obscene books in our school libraries. Are there books that focus on tough and controversial topics? Of course there are. But media specialists and teachers are the best people to decide what books and educational materials should be purchased based on the needs of their students. These decisions should not be made based on the opinions of people who have a political agenda. The last time I spoke to you, I asked that you please respect media specialists as the professionals they are trained to be. They should not be worried about losing their jobs over book selections. They should not be worried about losing their jobs or being fined or even arrested for doing their jobs. They should not be worried about their libraries losing funding over book disputes. They should not be worried about having empty shelves. This is what's happening in other school systems across the country, especially in Florida, and I feel sure you will not let that happen here. Thank you, and I hope you have a very successful school year.
Thank you, ma'am. Our second person tonight, Ms. Rochelle Whiteside.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In my 28 years of teaching students from every district in our county and from my time spent on this school board, I've learned that ours is a county of close individual communities willing to work together while still retaining their autonomy. Upon reviewing our updated policy number 3210, parental inspection of an objection to instructional materials, I feel the need to applaud the thorough thoughtfulness which has been employed in developing this policy, which not only gives parents the freedom to be involved in their children's education, it also allows the individual communities through the in-house committees the freedom, autonomy, and opportunity to help make those decisions. Thank you for the conscientious hard work you've done to create a policy that addresses the needs of our particular county, giving both parents and individual communities the freedom and opportunity to play an active role in their children's education. Ours is a county of close-knit communities where we have known and trusted each other in good faith. I believe our general consensus is one of fairness and honor and integrity. I look forward to beginning the upcoming school year with this strong, thoughtful policy in place as we continue to foster those traits. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This time, board members, we go to action item or information item number 7.1.
Good evening, board members, Chairman Smith. You have in your packet several board policies for consideration and first read. The very first one is school fees, policy 4600. At the very onset of this, the committee reviewed it. It pulls this policy back in line with current reporting requirements. The previous policy asked that they be sent to Raleigh. That's no longer required, so we cleaned that up. It also says that, for example, student fees shall be held to a minimum and reported to the superintendent and the Board of Education. So that component is in there for first read. The other component in that line item is a school fees breakdown. And without reading all of this to you, it's important to understand that while many districts do charge instructional fees, Pender County Schools does not do that. It's common for a $10 or $20 per student fee. We've not done that in the past. Most of our fees that we have are optional. As you can see, game ticket prices in there. school clubs and sponsorships, and they range anywhere from $5 to $40. We do have Chromebook fees for damaged Chromebooks, and those are listed in there as well for information. We do have college readiness exams. All juniors take the ACT for free in their 11th grade year as part of the state program. There is a fee associated with ACT, SAT, and PSAT if they take it on their own, but there are waivers available through the College Board Association for that. It does list the curricular fees as we just don't charge for those fees. There are student food services fees. Families that are not qualified for free reduced lunch are responsible for paying those fees. Field trip fees are associated with really the cost of the trip. So they look at the cost of the trip associated with that, whether it's an overnight trip or a day trip, and that is divided out among the participants equally. There is a policy 3320 that does assist through available school funds to support those in need. We're not allowed to, based on board policy, prevent a student from going because they can't afford the trip. So that's built into our policies as well. There are several fees associated with third-party contracted vendors, items like school pictures, yearbooks, yearbook ads, athletic booster ads, so on and so forth. Career and college promise fees, graduation pictures, senior items. And then the last section of that for review is really the policies that support those fees. School funds generated by school staff, which is 8410. It breaks it down into how the money is obtained, for what purpose, how it's spent, how it's budgeted. Most of that is at the end of the process. So they don't really set a budget out to begin with because they don't know what they're going to get until they get the fees in. Funds generated by parental organizations. It's important to know that parent organizations are separate from school funds. That's something that that every school district does. And then funds generated by third-party contracts, those like school pictures, things of that nature. Board policy 6420 and 8300 allow for principals to enter into contracts with those vendors specifically for the operation of their school. So I'm glad to try to answer any questions that you have regarding the first read or the budget as it's, or not the budget, but the breakdown of the fees that we have so far, if you have any.
Board members, do you have any questions for our Assistant Superintendent when it comes to policy 4600?
Kevin, is this going to get another read?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we have time to make revisions to it?
yes.
Okay.
It'll go back to the policy committee for examination again.
Okay.
Before it comes back for the September board meeting.
All right. I don't have anything further.
Okay. Anyone else? Right, next is concerning policy 4318, wireless communication.
Yes, sir. This one is brought up to standard with the additional technology that students may possess. So it brings into the account just the different types of technology, whether they be wearable communication devices. According to our tech gurus, they actually have glasses now that you're able to talk through, which, Mr. Springer, you should never get those. You'd never keep up with them. So it really brings us back into, it also does put some disciplinary consequences for violations of the policy that are spelled out in here. The previous policy directed specifically to policy 4300, which is the discipline policy, but these are explicitly written in this policy. First one is a warning. Second one would be a device confiscated and secured in the office. The student may retrieve this at the end of the day. And the third consequence would be the device is confiscated and secured in the office. A parent may retrieve this from the school at the end of the day. So it's...
Is there any questions, board members?
I've got one before we go too far. On your first item, it's a real simple one. I thought about it after the fact.
Sure.
Do other districts around us anywhere close by charge the fee for anything?
Instructional fees?
Yeah, like neighboring districts.
I believe.
All of them probably?
Yeah, pretty much all of them do. I wouldn't be able to give you an exact quote. I don't want to
No,
mention
that's all right. I
names,
just,
but it's pretty standard. Most districts I've been in charge an instructional fee.
okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if no other questions, policy 3625, a revision.
Give me just a second to get it pulled up. (3625) allows, basically the only thing that changed in here from the previous reads, proposed the changes to allow for a refund if this parking space is forfeited. So in that, parking fees are non-refundable for all suspensions or revocations of parking privileges. So if a student loses their parking privilege because of breaking a rule, for example, or breaking the law, then they would not be refunded that. But at the discretion of the principal, a refunded prorated balance may be issued if the space is reassigned equal to the revenue collected by the new parking space attendant or occupant. That's the only thing that changed on this one. But it does give us a little bit of insight as to, a little more direction for our principals to be able to take in this account. So,
Board members, have any questions concerning that policy 3625?
I'd just like to add, if the state revokes the child's license due to grades,
yeah.
if the kids don't have a C average, ain't that correct, Kevin? The state steps in and takes the license, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you can, you have to pass a certain number of classes to be able to maintain
your license.
Right. If you get expelled or kicked out, it also kicks in as well. Like I said, these will go back to second read into the committee, so we can certainly look at modifying that a little further if we need to.
Okay, 3625R.
This is the RMP for the previous policy. Requires submission of detailed budget for parking fees. So basically, I'll read to the part that's read. Parking fees will be established by the Pender County Board of Education on an annual basis. That was originally in the policy. Each of your principals desiring to charge student fees shall submit a proposed budget for parking fees, including all proposed revenues and expenditures, to the superintendent in sufficient time for the superintendent to submit those fees for approval to the board. Proposed parking budget shall be detailed, and proposed expenditures shall include at a minimum each item being procured, description of the items and or programs, and a justification for how those items and or programs are necessary for and connected to educational outcomes. And parking fees are still set at 50 at this point. Any questions on that particular one?
So it's got in the first sentence, parking fees will be established by the Pender County Board of Education on an annual basis, and last sentence is, starting in 2014, 2015, it's going to be $50.
That's a holdover, and needs to be redlined out.
Okay.
That's why I paused at the end of it. I noticed that it wasn't redlined.
Okay, 7.5, policy 3470 through 4305.
Yeah, this is the alternative learning program policy. One minor addition was made to this policy by the committee. These were reviewed, all these policies were reviewed for first read on 7/27/23. This one has the added proposal changes to include any student transferring from an alternative school located in another LEA or charter, that they would be enrolled in the Pender County Schools alternative school as a least restrictive environment. And based on the least restrictive environment, a student seeking to enroll in Pender County Schools who has been released from a PRTF residential facility is what that means, would also be required to enroll in an alternative school to start with as a least restrictive environment. So it's a practice we've done over the years. It just never was made it into policy. So essentially, a student coming from an alternative program in a different county would enroll in an alternative program with us to start with. And then anybody coming from a residential facility would automatically enter into the alternative program to start with.
Would that alternative program necessarily be at Pender Innovative Learning Academy?
Not necessarily have to be. It could be any range of items. A lot of it would depend on the services that were being offered to the student in the previous district, for example. If there was a homebound placement, we would honor that placement.
Gotcha.
In other words, it's just, we try not to change the placement when they come. We try to meet them where they are because we don't know this student. So we want to make sure that we have our items in a row so that we can serve the student the best way we possibly can with the supports that are in place from the previous district or the residential facility.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, board members?
Yeah, Kevin, who is in charge of this developing a behavior management plan?
Behavior management plan, it could be depending on where the student is served. If they're an exceptional child, for example, that behavior plan would be developed by the exceptional children's teacher and IEP team. We do have students that have behavior modification plans that are not underneath IDEA. So those will be developed typically by student services if that's the case. We also have some behavior plans that may be for a student identified as a 504 student, and that will be done by the 504 committee, which typically does include student services and the regular ed teachers as well.
So in the past, would it be accurate that the principal came up with those plans?
No.
No? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there ever any revisions made to those plans, or are they reviewed annually?
Yes. Go ahead.
So actually, with students with IEPs, those behavior teams meet almost monthly, sometimes bi-monthly, to review whether or not the behavior management tools that they're using are adequately meeting the child's needs and being productive in the classroom.
Right.
And so for students with 504s, maybe not monthly, but at least, I would say at least quarterly in most instances. I'll defer to my folks who have a lot more experience with 504 than I do. But then for students who are neither one of those, they're monitored, I would say at least on a quarter or a semester basis to see whether or not the behavior management tool, behavior contracts, whatever tool they're using to manage the behavior is actually doing the thing it's supposed to do. So typically in alternative schools, those behavior management tools are a big part of that student's education and how they're integrated back into, sort of your traditional public schools. So, sorry.
A typical plan would also include when it would be reviewed. That would be one thing written into the plan, typically. And just like Mr. McPherson said, that could be ranging from based on the plan they're under.
So I ask this because this happened personally to my family, right? So the IEP wasn't followed, and I just want to make sure these plans are going to be carried out like they should be.
Sure.
Okay. Is there consequences to the plans that aren't followed? There is.
Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
Anyone else? 4,400 student attendance.
This is one of the policies that we asked for input from by student services, social workers, and from principals about attendance. We did the same process with the cell phone, the electronic device policy as well. There are lots of changes in here. I don't want to read them all to you. It would take forever.
Board members, do you have any questions since we've already received this in our packets? Do you have any questions to save on time? If not questions, then we'll go down to number 3210.
Okay.
As board members, do you have any questions, comments? You want to share something with that then?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Unless you guys have questions.
Do y'all have any questions, board members, about 3210? Okay.
Give me, actually, yes, I do, and I'm sorry if you'll give me just a second. I'm pulling that up right now. I was noticing that one of the, in the 3200 and the 3210, one of the changes is that if one school, and forgive me if I'm wrong, if one school, if two school committees meet and have differing opinions on the books that are up for review, then we would then take that up to the next level, and they would make a decision, which would, in that case, become the county-wide decision, whether or not that book gets pulled county-wide.
Yeah, I could read the part out loud.
If you would, yeah, I would appreciate that.
If a specific material / title is removed from a collection of a particular building or school due to inappropriate content, for example, obscene language, sexual innuendo, etc., whether in the course of a routine review, parental objection, or other process, such a removal shall trigger a compulsory review by all other buildings, schools in the same age group. If there is any disagreement in the final determinations of all buildings or schools reviewing a specific material or title, a district level Community Advisory Council, otherwise known as CMAC, shall be convened to resolve the difference and to render a decision that will be applied across the entire district for all buildings and schools in that age group.
Okay.
Ms. Burns, Mr. Smith and I are on the policy committee, so if I could share a few comments, I think it might help address your question if you'll allow that.
Sure.
I think you're correct in your assumption that the issue that was trying to be addressed here was the disagreement between schools, and the recommendation or the proposal here is that the district resolve that dispute. And so what you stated in your question is 100% right, as far as your assumption of what the policy change, the language in the policy revision would do. Basically, it would say middle school A says this book is not appropriate, middle school B says it is appropriate. At that point, then the district would have to make a determination as to how to treat that book on a district-wide level. And the other thing I just would like to make clear is this would only be in cases where the book was determined not appropriate for sexual content, or essentially, as I think was referenced earlier in some of the comments, limitations of the First Amendment. So, there were a couple of cases where there was material that was determined by the media specialists and the other individuals that were on the review committees that were established by current policy, where at one school they said this is not appropriate for age because of adult content. And then at another school in the same age group, they said it was. And so in my mind, it was, to me, that requires an additional level of review by the district. So that's at least a little bit of kind of what the thought process was. Hopefully that's helpful to you.
Yes, and I understood what you were trying to do when I read the proposal. I have to be honest with you. When the board, and I'll give you a little history on this, when the board approved 3200, the revised 3210, we were coming off of the heels of COVID. And COVID taught me a lot as a board member, especially about masking, because it taught me that parents want to have a say in what is going on and what their children are being exposed to and what is happening in our schools. They want to say. And I was proud of Policy 3210 because it gave parents an opportunity to be on these committees and to have their voices heard. And not just at a school level, but also at a county level. And I believe that with the different communities that we have here in the county, and Ms. Whiteside, I think you summed it up very well. I think that we have individual communities here in this county, and they should have individual voices. I think there should not be one county-wide. I think this should be up to the school. This should not be another level of government that comes in and says, okay, we're going to make this county-wide. I think this should be left up to the school decision, or to the school committee decision level for each individual school. So
to share kind of the opposing side of that, The idea is not to remove any voices from the room. And please correct me if I'm wrong when I'm describing any of these processes, but under what's proposed, essentially the building level or school level committees would forward all the documentation that they developed. I'm assuming there's some kind of final report, something like that, right? That says, hey, we determined that this is not appropriate for the age group for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? And that's media specialists. And so to clarify on that committee, so the building level, you've got the building level administrative team, whomever that is. Can you tell me who that is? Or Mr. Lawson? I don't know if Mr. Lawson would be more appropriate to address that, but.
Just share the podium.
So I just want to clarify to make sure I'm answering your question correctly, sir. Are you asking about the team that we use for weeding or the team if there's a challenge? Because those are two different teams.
Okay, so and parental inspection, so 3210 would be as a result of a challenge and 3200 would not, right? That would be the weeding aspect.
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that.
No, that's very helpful. It's very helpful clarification. So let's go with the former, the regular weeding.
Right. So currently, the 3200 is going to be the MTAC team, so the Media Technology Advisory Committee, and that will be the administrative team. So for that, usually it's just either one or the other, either the principal or assistant principal. It's going to be the media coordinator as well, and then they're going to have a representative from each grade level or department, depending on if it's elementary, middle, or high school. They can differ, and then also parent representation. And they're encouraged at the high school level to have student representation as well. So that will look very similar as far as the makeup between that team and the committee that's formed at the school level if there's a challenge from a parent.
Okay.
But it's important to note that the teaching staff and parents will be separate, because we don't want a situation where someone that's approving the purchase of an item is also the one that's answering the parent's complaint.
So essentially what you're saying is the individuals might be different, but as far as the roles, it's,
Correct.
parent.
It's very much.
You're going to have a parent on both
Yes,
committees, but it might be a different parent.
Yes, sir, that's
right?
correct.
Okay. All right. So from that context, there's going to be a parent on both committees, and there's going to be the administrative team. Who is that? Is that?
The administration would be principal or AP, and
Okay.
it's one or the other. So, again, to help make sure that those teams are separate as the principals on the ones intact, we'd like to see the AP be the one on the challenge.
Right. Media coordinator.
It's going to be the same.
Right. Lead teacher from each grade in that age group, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then a parent. We've already discussed the parent. So those are the voices that are in the room. And so they all make a decision, right? And they have a report, and they forward that. In this case, under the proposed policy language, it would be to a district, right? So the district would have various reports to consider to hear all the voices that were involved in this decision-making process. And the district would establish a standard, or at least a determination on whether or not this is inappropriate. And that's not a question. I'm just trying to explain to Ms. Burns the thought process here. So I don't agree that it would be removing voices from the room. I think in the case that we have one set of media specialists, principal, lead teacher, and parents say this is not appropriate for this age group in one school, and because the child's age doesn't change. If I were to move and my child went from one school to another, the content in the book that is offensive, as determined by the media specialist, the principal, the parent, and the lead teacher for that grade or of each grade, it doesn't change the content of the book. And so that's why I think additional review is necessary to determine, again, it's not removing the voices from the room. It's the district looking at all that evidence and trying to make a final choice on whether or not it is inappropriate or it's not. And we're talking about obscenity and things of that nature. I'm not talking about whether it's culturally appropriate or other things, because I think those are more protected by the First Amendment. I'm talking about where there's a clear line and the committee has determined that it's not appropriate because it is, the examples that were given in the proposed policy language.
Oh, well, my concern was not so much that any voices were being left out. That I realize that there are parents on both levels of these committees. My concern was basically the autonomy of the committees at the school level. actually the autonomy of the committees within, for that particular community. That's because what one community might think is not good, another community might be all right with it. And if you're looking at something that is so grossly on one side, a book that is, on one side of right or wrong, then I think that we should leave that to the individual schools to make that decision.
I understand your point of view. Yeah, I as far as obscene language, sexual innuendo, et cetera, I think that's something where if you have a group of educators, media specialists, et cetera, that has clearly made a determination that the book contains that material and is not appropriate for a specific child in that age group, that the district it would be a dereliction of the district's duty to not take a look into that. That's how I feel. But I understand there's a difference of opinion there.
Craig, do we have any reports back from the committees?
So we have the report that I shared with the board when we did our last meeting that kind of outlined their reading review. I think it's important to note that currently in 3200, there's no requirement for them to complete a report. One of the things that we're trying to do, again, is to unify some consistency as far as those processes. So, we gave them a template to use when looking at weeding things for things like age, things like circulation, those types of things. So we have those and we'll continue to use those moving forward at the school level. If there is a challenge with 3210, that's submitted through an online digital form, which I think we've got the best process around. I don't know anyone else that makes it as easy, transparent, or clear for a community member to go in and complete that. And that is tracked the entire way. So that's going to go track, and we're going to see how that goes to the principal. When that committee meets, they've got specific documentation that they have to fill out as a team. And we do get that currently. When that's done, that comes back to both the parent and the district. We get a copy of that as well.
So while we're on this subject, I'm going to ask, how far are we with reviewing the other books that Phil and I talked to about the same authors?
Well, so one of the suggestions that came up in committee was that if schools decided to remove books based on content that they felt was age inappropriate, that would be a good consideration for, hey, if you've got this large collection, you might want to go ahead and take a look at some of the other titles that those authors have written, and it might be in your collection. So that was something we discussed in kind of our final meeting. Collection development is going to be a big part of what we do this year with our media centers. And our media titles, one of the things I showed you guys was our collection breakdown. I think the age of our collection, a little bit behind. I think we want to bring that up to speed. I want to think that we've got a lot of room to kind of grow, but I think we're eager and excited to make our collections better. So I think that this year, hopefully we can come provide you some updates. We'll talk about it again in our opening meeting.
Okay.
We're going to be doing some of that collection development planning, so I'm going to come back, show you where our collections are at. If you would like to have me back, I'd love to share that with you, and what we're doing as far as looking at titles that maybe circulation, haven't been checked out in 10 years. Can we use some of that shelf space that we're currently using for a title that's not high interest and find a high interest title that our kids really enjoy, that they want to have? So I'm excited about that. Our media coordinators are as well. So I hope I have the opportunity to come back and share that with you.
I'm not one to want to create more bureaucracy, but I would like to see the template in which they go by.
Sure, I'd love to be able to share, like any templates that we create, our collection development plan, we're gonna have one at the district level, each school's gonna have a collection development plan, the media coordinator, and that intact team is gonna generate, that kind of helps guide them towards what areas of their collection they need to focus on. And I'd love to be able to share those with you when we create them.
Thanks, sir. I don't have anything else.
Do you have any feedback on these specific proposed revisions? Maybe just pros and cons. You don't have to tell us whether you're for or against it. I understand that might be uncomfortable, but just, pros and cons, or if you don't have any feedback, I understand that's fine. But.
Well, one thing that I think that's important for the board to consider, and I saw specific, I want to use this specifically. Oh, sorry.
Already closed it.
Oh, okay. But I think you were talking about, like, when we were talking about age appropriateness, and there's some questions about why one title might be weeded and one school not another. It's a challenge. There's not a very clear-cut answer for what age group a specific title is appropriate for. If you go and look at scholarly reviews, they're going to differ in that. And so I think that's why it's critical that we get the community members in that area, the parents in that area, as well as our teacher leaders to take a look at that. I think it's going to be a challenge. It's like, if I were to ask everyone up here that has a child, I don't know how many of you have a child, and I were to ask you when they were 5, what TV shows did you allow them to watch? Every one of you is going to give me a different answer. And so I just want us to kind of realize that that's the question we're asking here. I think that's what we're talking about. And it's a very difficult thing to do. I believe very strongly that our school leadership and our school media coordinators are doing the best they can to ensure that the best materials are selected for our students. I think our policy is really in good shape compared to other districts around us. I think we've got a rock solid process for allowing parents to make a complaint digitally in a way that we get to it very quickly and we address it, and we're working to make sure all that paperwork is there and it's very transparent. So I'm very proud of that. I think that we've got a good thing in place for that. I also kind of, when you review a book, for example, it's a very time-consuming process. So one of the things that I think about when I see this policy is also the time it's going to take if one school decides that they're going to challenge this book, and now we're asking all of our schools to pull everyone together to do that. I think that could be a very time-consuming process. I'm not saying it's not necessarily, it's not speaking to its validity, but I think that could really bog us down potentially in getting those accomplished. And it might make it so it's much harder for us to answer if a parent has a request to remove something. If we've got to have one school review it and give that parent an answer, that would happen much more quickly than if now we have to have every school review it. And then if there's a difference, now it's got to come back up to us at the district level. And our policy currently says we can't remove a title during that process. So that's going to be much more difficult for us to get a timely answer to that parent with these revisions. Is that kind of?
No, it does. And my only response to that would be the way I look at this is to first do no harm, right?
Right.
Because the parent can go to Amazon and buy the book. They can go to the public library and they can get the book. There's other ways that they can get the book if they want to put this book in their child's hands. And that's why I think I'm a bit lost when I hear, and I understand all sides of this, and I respect all sides of this, but I don't personally agree that we're banning books because we're deciding what's appropriate for our collection. And there are many other ways, that families, if they want their child to be exposed to these learning materials or would have access to them. So I want to make that clear. In my opinion, if you recall, there was a separate conversation that we had where I asked, is there any way, for example, for the software vendor that we use to flag these books where, like, if a parent wants to say, hey, I don't want my child to have access to these 10 titles, to where when they check it out, much in the same way that if you check out a book at a public library and you're overdue on another book, it'll flag it to where you can't check out any other books until you return that title or pay a fine or whatever the case is. If we could do that, that would be more reasonable to me, where it's, okay, we allow the parents the ability to have control over what their child has access to, but at the same time, it still remains in the collection, and those parents that want a child to have access to those materials would still have access to those materials. But you told me that the vendor is not able to do that, so I think this was an alternative way to address the real situation where, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the regular weeding process, there were 2 schools that decided differently about the age appropriateness, and there's 2 specific, one at the high school level, one at the middle school level, about the age appropriateness of the content in 2 titles. And so, in my mind, that's a situation that needs to be resolved, because at the end of the day, I don't know if Mr. McPherson wants to, chime in about liability, but basically we have a committee of, the leadership team of the school, the lead teacher in each grade, media specialist, and a parent that said this is not appropriate for a 10-year-old at one school. But then at another school, the same 10-year-old can look at that book and it's somehow appropriate. And that to me creates liability and is not something that should be unsettled by the district team. So, and that's just.
If I can, can I speak on that?
Yes, sir. Those are the rest of my comments. Thank you.
I want to first and foremost say our policy committee was not in agreement with this. There was a division, and that's with that. I do not see a need for this. And the personal reason why I'm not pushing for a need for this is because how many students do we currently have in our school system?
Well, we have about 11,000.
Just on that bulk, just,
11,000 roughly.
okay, 11,000.
I'm sure it'll break that this year.
Okay, would you say that number's been pretty consistent in the last 5 years?
It's gone up.
Okay, gone up.
I think I heard like,
So if I were to-
got 750 students in the last 5 years. What do you think of that? So,
How many books have been, a parent has actually challenged in the past? I know the answer, and I'll be happy to give it to you, but out of 11,000 students that represent maybe 22,000 mamas and daddies, I guess, right? Or grandparents, whoever, one parent. The question I have is that if we have policies at work, it's almost as we go to Walmart and buy a vacuum cleaner, and before we even take it out to see how it functions, that we look at it and say, you know what? Nah, let's just scrap this and just get a whole nother vacuum cleaner. And so my thing is that why aren't we allowing the process to play itself out? Is this become such a topic that really needs this kind of deliberation? Because anytime we have a group come in here waving papers, either on either side of the political spectrum, I'm very hesitant of that, and I'm not for that because I don't think that that is what we should be doing. It is the parent's role to be the parent. It's not my role to be their parent. And so that's really my thing, is that every school, I don't know if one school had a 4 to 5 vote to keep the book and the other school had a 4 to 5 vote not to keep it. I'm not part of that. So that's why I respect the opinions of all, but we do have in place, I believe, and I'd ask Dr. Breedlove to correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have in place already. A parent can go online, just as they can see how much overdue lunch money they have for their child. A parent can go online and also see in real time what their child has checked out. Is that correct?
So, and I was going to kind of answer a follow-up with this question. So the way that we currently use a system called ClassLink, which is a single sign-on system. So our students have the ability to use that to go in and see all the books that they can check out in the library by going to something called Destiny Discover. Destiny is our software that's provided by Follett. Not free of charge, we pay for it, but yes, we do use them. And so the student can go into ClassLink, which is just logging in their email, single sign-on, click on Destiny Discover. They get in there, they can put books on hold, they can see all the books that are in the collection, you can see the books that are checked out. Parents can log in as their child. They can sit down with their child, pull up ClassLink, click on that and see that. We also have the ability to pull reports, so if a parent ever had a question, our policy already states that a parent can ask about certain materials, right, as part of 3210, so they could put in a request and ask, and the media coordinator could print that out. Now, I'm a geek, right, so I love the idea of things being quicker, in real time. I love the idea that a parent could pull out an app. In fact, we've got a great district app that we're going to be using where parents are going to be able to instant message teachers. It's called Rooms. I'm very excited about that. I think it's going to increase communication, make communication much quicker. As Mr. Cordero said, we did reach out to the vendor to say, hey, will you have a parent portal, right? Will you have a way that they can have their own login separate from the student, or that they could get email updates when their child checks out a book. Currently, they do not offer that, and they do not plan to offer that. But I have followed up with them. I'm waiting to get another meeting with them. We also have 3 other vendors that provide library resource management software that we're looking into to see, one, not only is that something that they provide, but also, is it a better mousetrap? Is it a better system for us? Is it cheaper, right? Is it more efficient? So we continue to look for that, and we also try to continue to be, think outside the box, I guess, on ways that we can better make those types of things available to our parents, not just for what's checked out in the library, but everything that's going on in the classroom, right? So they can be a part of, I think Dr. Relive and I were talking about this the other day, not related to this, but we're just talking as parents. One of the things that we love to do is sit down for dinner and speak to our kids about what they learned. right, that day. So anything we can do to help foster those conversations and connections between instruction and communication between the parent, the child, and the teacher, I think that that's going to go a long way to make education for our students way better than it currently is. Can I answer that and speak to that question? Hopefully answer your question.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate your candor and professionalism, for sure.
And I really don't think anyone in our community, and if so, then their mind is perverted, but I don't think anyone in our community wants to put pornographic material in our libraries. I really just don't think that that's the case. And if there is something that somehow has gotten into the system, we've got media specialists that are working in there that have children and grandchildren. So, I mean, if it's at that degree, but I would encourage parents to know what their child and have those conversations one-on-one with them, because what might be allowed in one home might not be allowed in another. So,
Well, I think it's also important to note, and we had someone that spoke up wonderfully about, the professionalism and the wonderful nature of our media coordinators. It's important to note that those people are in those media centers helping students pick out the appropriate book for their age level, their reading level, and that's what they're there doing every day. So we can't take away from that fact as well. It's one thing to speak to the books in our collection, but also the kids aren't just running through aisles, just grabbing whatever book on the shelf, right? That we have professionals helping them make those selections.
any other comments, question, board members, so we can move on?
I had one more comment, which is to say that we've talked about the lion's share of the changes that were proposed by myself, and I'll be clear that Mr. Smith, I appreciate you mentioning that it wasn't a unanimous decision, so thank you for doing that. And the other change that I do think, even if those are, my colleagues on the board are not supportive of the lion's share, would be the calendar day requirement for challenging the building level determination. I think is 7 days, and I think, in the event that the notification goes before like a family vacation or something like that, I think we should require a little bit more than 7 days. I propose 30. I could, see a compromise of 2 weeks or something like that, but I think that we need to give the parent a little bit more time to digest and to submit a challenge if they do so want to do that through the method that's prescribed in the policy. So I just wanted to make clear that that was another change that kind of is severable from the other aspects that we've discussed.
Yeah, I think a parent should have any time they want to throughout the entire school year to be able to challenge. I wouldn't limit a parent to be able to challenge anything. So I agree with that. Mr. Springer, you were going to say something, sir?
Yeah, Pastor.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we kind of melded 3200 and 3210 together.
Okay.
I'm happy that's 3210 is the one for a challenge.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
The last policy is same. Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson.
Happy birthday to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Policy 7401, duty to drive a school bus. This is a policy that was reviewed by the members of the committee, the policy committee. We wanted to include a clause in the policy that would exclude exceptional children's teacher assistants from driving a bus. The reason for that is the nature of their job may require them to be a one-on-one with the student. If they're leaving 15 minutes early or coming 15 minutes late, we want to ensure that the safety of that child and the instructional practices are being carried through. The other additional component in there, beginning with the 23-24 school year, the exclusion to drive a bus for non-EC teacher assistants will be at the superintendent's discretion. So that was what we ended up with at the end. There are other factors in there that would preclude a non-EC teacher assistant from driving, health reasons, things of that nature. But there are some things not listed in there that we felt like the superintendent discretion might cover.
How much of our bus drivers staff is our EC assistants already?
I think there are 5 or 6 EC bus drivers. I think that's correct. list we ran.
That's all.
Out of how many drivers total? I know it's
I
tough.
know approximately 50% of our TAs or IAs are currently driving, Mr. Cordero.
Okay, thank you.
And as Mr. Taylor pointed out, there are other provisions in there that they have gotten permission not to drive for medical conditions, unable to obtain CDLs, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
And that's already outlined in our policy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
These are, of course, all first read, so we'll go back to committee.
I'd like to add, Mr. Chair, if we could amend that policy to say that we will pick up the tab for the medical cards.
Do we already do that, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, yes,
And we pay for that every 2 years?
yes. Sir.
Or every year if medical?
Get it every year, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
We pay full payment for DOT physicals that are required to drive, yes, sir.
Okay.
As well as the license that it takes to drive the bus.
Are we paying for their endorsements too, or just the CDLs?
We pay them for the endorsements required to perform their job, sir.
Okay, so that's a passenger endorsement, correct?
And school bus.
Yep.
And CDLP status.
Okay, all right.
If they have a $15 endorsement to drive a motorcycle, I don't think we cover that. We only cover the endorsements and the CDL.
That's what I was after. Yep.
To perform the job.
Okay, thanks, sir.
We're not currently picking up students, are we, on motorcycles?
I was going to ask the same question.
Not yet. Mopeds will
We
be
might
next.
get more volunteers to sign up for transportation department. Okay. Is there anything else?
I believe that is it, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time then is 7:10, Esther 3, budget planning.
Good afternoon, Board Chair, Vice Chair, Board
Yes, ma'am.
members, staff, parents. We are bringing before you our ESSER 3 budget plan for this upcoming year. You will notice on the left-hand side of the column that says status. So we wanted to make sure that if it's in the plan, that we brought it to you, if it's continuing from a prior year, or if it's come before you and it's been approved. We have the projected balance of $11.6 million. Again, that's projected because we are still currently not closed out for prior year yet. So you can see in here some of the items and the amounts and the justification. We also want to caution that these are estimates and that this is a plan, which means that it can be updated and changed as needs arrive. So we want to make sure that you are informed of what our plan is for this amount of money that expires in year 24. Any questions?
Board members, are there any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
The item that's been added was 7.11711, after school.
All right, that was my item. Can y'all just tell us what we have going on for our after-school programs? I guess elementary and middle school.
Sure.
And high school too, if you have any, besides sports.
Okay. So we do a lot of after-school programming. Pacey's is 21st Century grant that we have. We do after-school tutoring. We also do some tutoring during the day with that as well. So we have academic enrichment activities, summer camps like STEM robotics nights, math nights, literacy nights, arts nights. Applications open, and this is K to 8 for Pacey's schools. Applications opened as of June 1st, and it's $65 a month. There is a waiting list for most schools, so whenever a student drops off or isn't going anymore, they can fill that space with another student. So there's a lot of things that happen with those after-school activities. Now, at the high school, the Pacey's 21st Century grant does not cover high schools. So they do tutoring after school. They do, clubs and activities after school along with athletics and things like that as well.
But that's always local school based, right? I mean,
Yes.
all right.
Yes, sir.
So the first one you talked about, that is mostly concentrated in elementary schools, though, right?
It's elementary and middle.
But is the bigger part of it in elementary?
I don't think is the bigger part of Pacey's in middle and elementary school?
It's
Or is
at
it kind of
every
consistent?
elementary, right? And
Every
and middle.
elementary and middle. Mm-hmm.
We take advantage of more elementary for the younger students.
As I understand it, there's been some discussion of some things for middle school by some other outside groups that, does that involve like, a straight up program like that, or tutoring, or can anyone answer? Kevin, can you answer any of it?
We met today with one organization.
Okay.
Dr. Sawyer and myself met with the organization today, looking at combining our push for tutors in our middle schools especially. And they would be able to work with us on that. They're going back to their team and we're going back to our team to further discuss it. So that we, obviously, we enjoy the partnerships that we have with Parks and Rec, with everybody that we partner with. So we want to make sure we can ensure that those partnerships continue to grow. And when new ones come around, we try to definitely make it fit the needs of our students and our staff. So,
Kevin, where are we at with the tutor.com negotiation? Have we got anywhere on that?
yeah, anyone taking this one too?
Sure.
So we are in the process of, it's actually further down the agenda.
Okay.
So, yeah, but we can wait till then, we can cover it now if you want to.
Mr. Chair, that's your.
We'll wait till then.
Okay.
So I guess from a middle school standpoint especially, I think I didn't realize how involved it already is. I was thinking it was a lot less. But I've had some organizations approach me about some changes too, and two in particular. And I think a couple of other people here have heard from one or two as well. The Brigade Club and also probably the YWCA, I think were the two. Do we have room to try to work with some of these people for
I think.
tutoring? Is tutoring the biggest need that you see?
I think so. When you look at, the schools that we have, not really, you can chime in if you want to, but if you look at the schools and we're not unique in this, but our middle schools probably need some support. That's statewide, that's really nationwide.
Yeah.
It's that age group of students that need a mentor, that need extra tutoring on the side. So we got to figure out how to make it all fit together.
I think it's important to note too that we're always looking for those partnerships to expand access to opportunities for all students. I met with the Cameron Art Museum 2 weeks ago to bring in some things for our middle school students, for our 8th graders, and field trips and things like that, professional development for teachers. So there's a lot of opportunities. So we're always open to those.
I just know that some of these people have things like federal grants that only pay for certain things or certain ways of doing things, or, whatever. They've got requirements to meet, and I just don't want to see us miss out on any opportunities that doesn't use any local money. That's the way to put it, but.
Do we still have a partnership with Pender Adult Services where their senior citizens come in? And I know at one time they were coming in volunteering to read and do other activities. Is there still that?
It took a.
I know at one point it seemed like it. Okay. So that relationship is building back?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, board members, we're at the point of our consent agenda. You've had opportunity to read those items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as it is.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This time is our action agenda. The first one is our financial software update 9.1.
And I have that. At our last meeting, there was a request just for us to pursue with our current vendor whether or not that they would, in essence, provide us with a guarantee on their software excluding human error. And verbally, the answer was no, but asking for that in writing. We did get an email response back from them that would also kind of, it was interesting because they never came out and said yes or no. All right, it was kind of, which if it would be best, I would like to read it just so everybody's aware, and I will send this to the full board following the meeting. The specific question that was asked from Link is, we have been asked by the board if Link would agree to a conditional guarantee where Link would be responsible for PII security unless there's human error occurs. Their response: Link is the provider of our software to our customers and our data management for customers' data that we manage. We meet standard requirements for data security for data that we manage and can provide more information about that if requested. As the question is stated in your email, I'm not sure whether or not the question refers to our data security or to access the data within the software governed by security set by the district. As a software provider, we provide software management tools that are controlled by our district customers for security within the applications based on the assigned roles, responsibilities, and location settings. However, we are not responsible for security of data access decisions made by the district or their users, or for any security or data access actions taken by the district or their users within our software. So it sounds very similar to what they have stated previously, even though I think we were looking for a yes or a no, and it did not provide that. But I will, like I said, provide that additional information, this email to the board to try and decipher as well. I will say on this update on an RFQ that was also asked, I did speak to a individual. His name is Barry Pace. He works for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. He is the Director of School Business Modernization. Mr. Pace has agreed to come to our September board meeting. He will be able to come here and speak to the board about the RFP process. He will be able to give an overview of the process, various vendors who have various vendors and who uses them across the state. He's the one that's responsible for that, and is talking to him, very intelligent, very thorough in his discussion. He's also providing who recently changed softwares across the state. Also, just insights to be aware of for any district that chooses to change, and really what are the main vendors out there that school systems are using. And so I just want to let the board know that we are continuing to look at the RFP process, and I think it's a good place to start is with the person who's really in charge of that and what that would look like for our district, and allow you as board members to ask questions to him.
I'm a little confused. We voted, in our vote, we did not approve to, why are we researching RFP if we've not voted to do that? Is that based on individual requests? Because I know as a board, we didn't agree or have 100% agreement on that, so.
Yes, sir. It has been a considerable amount of time since we have looked at other vendors, and we just wanted to see what that process would look like if we open that up and do that. And certainly that would come with our work with our finance team. Currently, I am not aware of anything that we are unable to do. If Ms. Nowlan, if you have anything to say on that, but right now we are, as far as my conversations with Ms. Nowlan and our finance team, we are handling everything that we need to do as far as a processes, procedures element, but certainly I think speaking with Mr. Pace may be helpful to the board as well, and just seeing what that looks like. Finding out information from my previous district, I know that they were looking, so we started that process back in 2019, 2020, and I know that it is lengthy, and they still have not gone through officially with a change in my previous district.
So just to clarify, no local funds are being spent right now to do this?
Oh, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question. If you'll
Sure,
permit, sir.
go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you've communicated. Essentially, this is, NCDPI is encouraging, from what it sounds like, local education agencies to become more modernized and efficient with the software they use, and they have a variety of different grant resources available to assist school systems in modernizing if they choose to do so. And there's a specific cadre of staff members at NCDPI to assist us with that process if that's something that we were interested in. Is that right?
I'm not. I don't know the fine details of those grants, but that is my understanding. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this was more of information than it was an action item? Or just action that we're going to be bringing someone in to discuss?
Sure. Information on what I found out in my discovery.
Okay. Sounds great. Any other questions, board members? 9.2.
Good evening, Board. Each year, the board has to approve the next year's Title I Consolidated Federal Programs Plan, which covers Title I, II, III, and IV. So in your board packet, we have Title I. I'm just going to go over a little bit of the specifics on each one of them so you understand each one of them and what each one of the funding sources are for. So Title I provides supplemental academic support and learning opportunities to help at-risk children. And we serve students in 8 schools: Cape Fear Elementary, CF Pope, Malpas Corner, Pender Lee, Rocky Point, Burgall Middle School, Cape Fear Middle School, and West Pender Middle. Services include salaries, support for foster students, stability and transportation for them, homeless students, instructional coaches, PD substitutes, PD stipends for teachers, and parent involvement money as well. Title II program is for effective instruction in classrooms. It focuses instead on teacher, principal, school leader effectiveness and equity. We use that for professional development for educators, salaries, stipends, leadership programs, MTSS, and things like that. Title III is our language instruction education program, the LIEP, which serves our LEP students that are placed for purposes of attaining English proficiency while meeting challenging state academic content and student academic achievement standards. So we use that money for sheltered instruction, scaffolding, for a lot of different things for ML students, our multilingual students. And then we have Title IV, which promotes equitable access to educational opportunities, including holding all students to high academic standards, ensuring meaningful action is taken to improve the lowest performing schools and schools with underperforming student groups. We use that as well for professional development for educators, leaders, teachers, staff, stipends, substitute coverage, collaborative educator work, MTSS, and other activities for effective use of technology. Any questions?
Board members, any questions, comments?
Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the 23-24 Consolidated Federal Programs Plan.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Our next is 9.3.
This is the recruitment bonus.
No, sir, it's the,
Some healthcare.
Oh,
the
Maxim,
healthcare.
sorry. I skipped ahead, Mr. Page.
Hello again.
hello.
This is a continuation of Maxim nurse staffing for 5 of our schools, Cape Fear Middle School, West Pender Middle, Pender High School, CF Pope, and Surf City Elementary. We've been doing this for 2 years now. This is paid out of ESSER's funds. We'll draw your attention to just 2 quick things. The effective date of this is August 14th, first day kids arrive. We have built in to this as pretty much a maximum of what we would do. If the person is out, we don't pay for that person that day, so to speak. So this is a maximum, and this agreement is pretty standard. We've used this for the past, well, now 3 years going on for this year.
Kevin, you don't have any, is there any real changes in it for this year?
No, no changes.
I make a
really.
motion that we approve it then.
How much is this maximum?
468,000.
468,000?
Yes, sir.
Has anybody ever thought about hiring a paramedic?
Hiring who?
A paramedic?
No, sir.
They got the same, well, not all capabilities, but they're under the directive from the doctor at the hospital, right? Just as a nurse would be.
Right. I don't know all the details of what a school nurse responsibility is. I do know they have to be a registered nurse. Most of them are a BSN. So I'd have to check on that, Mr. Springer, to be able to answer you 100% accurately.
Okay, yeah, I would like for you to check on it, if you don't mind.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion on the floor, a second. Any other discussion?
Do we obtain multiple quotes in this process?
Did we what?
Did we get quotes from multiple vendors for this service?
No, sir, we did not.
Did we solicit quotes from multiple vendors for this service?
No, sir.
So this is like a sole source procurement. We didn't ask for anybody else if they could provide the service at a better price.
That's correct.
Is there a reason why we did that?
We've done.
Didn't do that.
Yeah, well, our first year we did this, we did shop around for other services. There are services that we utilize with other contract individuals. Buyout of nursing, for example, is one that was on the consent agenda, I think. Yeah. What's the other one that we use for?
Exceptional children.
EC, BlazerWorks. So we could have gone with BlazerWorks, for example, for different items, but we've been with Maxim. Part of that is the continuation of these nurses. The ones that we have in those buildings have relationships with the staff and the students. So in order to keep the nurses that we have, we've been able to manage that.
We had some real trouble a few years ago keeping some of this stuff staffed.
Okay.
So it's really, this has calmed it. I can't remember the last time I heard anything about a school nurse from, in a bad way.
Does a school district have a policy on expenditures over a certain amount requiring multiple quotes?
I would have to defer that to Ms. Nowlin.
Yes, sir.
And this is exempt for that, for a specific reason, I'm assuming,
Right. Service contracts in general.
are exempted?
That's correct.
Okay. All services?
Specific services like nursing. I mean, we have the exemption, just like you said, what is the qualification where we don't have a non-compete?
Yeah, sole source procurement, right,
Sole source,
right.
So those items are all considered in this nursing service.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would it be better though if in the future if we just, attempted to advertise it, hey, we've got this contract, just to make sure that no one can say that, well, we didn't know that we we would have bid, but we didn't.
Like, yeah, right. I wouldn't want to deprive a vendor of the opportunity if, and it's possible we might pay more for the current vendor because we don't want different people in the building. I get that too, but.
And that's something we've worked very hard on this year, is always encouraging that. And just like you said, we provide them the understanding that it's not always the cheapest, even if we go out and shop it. So we always encourage that one.
I don't know, maybe we need to just have someplace on our website that's got.
I was gonna ask the same question.
Yeah, everything that we're, not necessarily have to pay for an ad or something somewhere, but.
Just, procurement webpage that says, hey, these are all the current open solicitations opportunities. This is the date it opens. This is the date that you're required to submit, a bid, a responsive bid. And this is the, the bid document specifying the criteria for the solicitation. Do we have something like that already?
We do not currently have a procurement page. We use the IPS, which is part of the.
Right, it's a state system. Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Is that something that, Brandon, this is probably for you, if we're all in agreement about starting a web page or something like that for the.
Sure.
Would we, could that be done just by us here talking about it, or would we need to actually vote on it as a?
I think you guys could vote to create a web page, or there could be a consensus drawn.
I don't even mean, just something on our existing, something.
Yeah, just a procurement page to put all
literally just a list of, a single, something simple.
like a single
5-minute
page.
posting,
Like in other systems that we've had a procurement
Page.
link that says,
Yeah,
we have all these outstanding.
Very common.
So we can
Something so that, you could post there, Mike could post there, or EC could post there, or whoever.
Mr. Hall, if you like, we can,
contact Kevin Taylor.
we have a motion and a second on the floor. If you'd like, Mr. Hall, after we vote on this, if you want to amend the agenda and add that, just to give everyone an opportunity to say something if you like. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. 9.4, recruitment bonus.
Yes, sir. We are bringing this back to the board. This was previously approved, a $5,000 recruitment bonus for math, science, EC, Exceptional Children's Program, and teachers at Pender Innovative Learning Academy. And what we would like to do is ask if we could change the payout structure. Currently, the payout structure is $2,500 upon signing, and then $2,500 again the following year. We would like to move this to a $5,000 recruitment bonus paid out this year in 10 equal installments of $500. We feel that this would have a bigger impact on potential candidates coming to Pender County Schools in those areas. And if a teacher then decides to leave mid-year, something like that, they would not get the additional funds of that payout. But overall, those funds would go out to that individual teacher who has agreed to join Pender County Schools for this year in those areas. So that is what staff would like, is bringing that to the board, see if...
The dollar amount would not change. It would just be the way it's paid out would.
Yes, sir.
Is this more in keeping with our neighboring counties?
It is. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and that was the whole purpose of the exercise, to be competitive, correct?
That's correct.
I make a motion that we approve the recruitment bonus payment.
The restructure, we have a motion. Yes, ma'am. We have a motion by Ms. Burns. Is there a second?
I got some comments, Mr. Chair. Just because of other neighboring counties, what would be the reasoning behind this?
For the payout, it has a bigger impact on a teacher choosing Pender County Schools versus a $2,500 this year and another $2,500 next year. So it would go all into the 23-24 school year.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to actually have some more discussion, which is more than welcome. Is there a second, or does the motion die?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion. I want this to be friendly. In my feedback or conversations with some constituents, I just wanted to bring up for everybody's feedback, since this is on the agenda, that I would like to also provide the superintendent the flexibility to potentially make this bonus eligible to locations he determines to be critical. So for example, if Penderley has a hard time hiring because where it's located, for example, that we could potentially use a $5,000 bonus as an incentive to hire staff or attract staff to that specific location. And again, this would be entirely your discretion. But positions and locations that the superintendent determines to be critical. So,
Ms. Burns, do you accept that as an amendment, or would you like to keep the amendment that is on the floor?
I concur. I'll take the amendment.
Should it say anything about, like, provided that the extra funding is available, or?
everything is funding dependent. That was in the original program. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I agree with that, though.
But the dollar amount payout, as what we're saying, would be as what Dr. Breedlove has recommended.
Yes, sir. 5,000 for the 10 payments. I wouldn't want to change that. I think that's fine.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the agenda. Let me make sure our legal knows where we're saying. Brandon, do you have the new?
Yeah, so it is to, a motion to approve the recommended restructure of how the bonus is going to be paid over 10 separate installments of the $5,000, giving the superintendent flexibility for locations critical to apportion said bonus. Is that accurate?
In addition to the original categories of math and science, I believe it was originally. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we're basically expanding
Yeah,
the criteria.
you're expanding the criteria.
The eligibility criteria for the bonus to not just math and science, but math, science, and then any position or location that the superintendent determines that it's critical that we use this bonus tool to attract the talent necessary to achieve educational outcomes.
Is there a second to the motion? We have a motion by Ms. Burns. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now is there discussion? Mr. Springer?
Yes, sir. So look, I'm not opposed to the teachers getting a raise. My fear for this is if you get a teacher in here paying them $500 extra and they turn around and quit, and it's May, we'll just say May, it's into the school year, and we got to have these extra funds spent by September. What are we going to do? Because procurement of material ain't coming easy these days. So we can't just throw that money away.
So to that point, I do think you will have spent the majority of that money by May. Like they would have only not received one of those payments by May, under the revised structure.
Well, let's just say January then.
You spend half of it and then whatever, so be it. I mean, that's a great question for the superintendent. But
We would offer that same bonus structure to try and recruit another teacher, science teacher at whatever school, then that would pick up on those payments moving forward. So science, math, exceptional children, and Pender Innovative Learn. So
Right. Do you mean like if they partially used up their, so this one position has this $5,000 allotment and they've used a partial amount of it, so then you hire someone mid-year, do they get
a prorated amount?
Right.
Pick it up.
But your net, if you promise them 5,000, then your net amount may be, 6,500 or whatever.
correct. We're looking at the 23-24 school year right now. If looking at the 24-25 school year, we may be coming back and looking at additional funds or something else in order to keep these, if needed, these bonus structures.
But he
But we
may-
will have
I
to
think-
figure that out beyond ESSERS at some point.
He may be worried about the flexibility of the, what happens if you go over budget by, I don't know, $20,000 or,
Yeah, it's $20,000 coming out of local funds that we had planned on putting,
It's dependent on funding.
Right.
What we have.
so we're going to in other words, we're going to shortchange that teacher by a year, potentially. If teacher A quits in January, and they got to go to May.
And we would have to be upfront if we see that would, that we are running low on these funds. We would just have to be upfront with the individual. And
Yeah,
so
obviously,
they would
we
sign
couldn't
up.
use that as a recruitment a recruitment stipend saying, hey, we can't give you $5,000 bonus.
It may turn to 2,500 at that point, or 2,000, something
Okay.
like that.
I mean, you could, if you've got a scenario where this position just doesn't get hired, you may never spend the 5,000 for that, and it could, I mean, that could make up for the shortfall, couldn't it, if?
Correct.
But
What
no-
we're
no
talking
one has a
about
crystal
now
ball
are
here,
very
so.
specific positions, and we have a finite amount of those positions and what these funds are set for. So we know exactly the maximum on what that looks like, not looking at turnover in those positions, of course. But right now, on paper, we know basically the maximum amount, what this would cost us moving forward by how many science teachers that we need, how many math teachers that we still need, how many exceptional children's teachers that we need, and then multiplying that by $5,000, we have a finite amount.
Okay.
And any buffer essentially would be your discretionary part, that we just changed I mean, theoretically, right? Because it's,
Ms. Nolan's going to pre-audit the contract and ensure that there's money left in the budget before the
Always.
contract's executed, right?
That's correct.
I think Mr. Springer is just worried, he doesn't want it to spill over into taking local funds that, you know, that property tax mostly pays for, and
We'll ensure that.
a tiny little bit of sales tax that doesn't escape to New Hanover and Onslow, but, you know, everyone knows what I mean. I've harped on all this before, so.
Yes, sir.
Motion and second is on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Frank Bonner, you may want to push that out as soon as possible. We have teachers that we need to hire.
Well, if they're on the fence especially, right?
Sir.
9.5, bathroom partitions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Come before you this evening with a request to approve the bathroom partition replacements at Malpas Corner Elementary and on the Cape Fear campuses, which have reached their end of life. Malpas Corner's 30 years old. Cape Fear is approaching 25. The quotes received include also the removal and replacement of all the partitions. And we've spent now going on 2 months soliciting quotes. We've only had one vendor reply. The cost for Malpas Corner is $39,400, and the cost for Cape Fear is $68,850 to be paid from Fund 4, our local capital outlay budget. Precision Walls is the company that did respond, and they've done other work for us as well.
Okay. Is there any questions before there's motions on the floor for Mr. Taylor by any chance?
How did the numbers compare with what was in the budget? Was that kind of in line with what you were expecting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, this plastic formed material is much better as far as durability than the powder coated, which can be scratched off and graffiti and things of that nature. This holds up much better and easier to clean.
These bathrooms are in pretty rough shape, aren't they, right,
Yes, sir.
presently?
And this is the first attempt to start chipping away. I mean, there's 19 schools, and many of them are in need of repair.
Any other questions before we take a motion? Is there a motion on the floor then for approval?
I will make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve 9.5, the bathroom partition replacements. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Mr. Cudera, any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I believe is Dr. Sawyer, I-Ready Math.
Good evening. Just as an added change to the agenda says iReady Mathematics Supplemental Support. We purchased iReady Mathematics a couple of months ago. This is an extra added layer of support for middle school for iReady to add reading, diagnostics, and supplemental materials and tools for teachers to include implementation support, data management, assessments, and diagnostics and personal assessments for students at middle grades in reading to support them with reading.
Okay, with that understanding, board members, do you have any questions for Dr. Sawyer before we have a motion on this item?
Yes, ma'am. Have they always had this iReady supplemental materials before?
So we had iReady last year.
Mm-hmm.
Before I got here, they started using iReady diagnostics to be able to see where students are in their reading and their math. When we purchased iReady, we had some experience with them, went through the process of adoption, and there was a lot of people involved in that process. And now we're adding that extra layer for MTSS for student services and support for
So
students.
how long has iReady been in the schools? Since before you got here?
I think for a year. Do you know? Multiple years?
Maybe it would be 3 years for me, it was here when I got here.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments or questions for Dr. Sawyer? Not hearing any, is there a motion then to approve this? 9.6. And this is going to be paid out of ESSER funds, is that correct?
Yep. There's a line item in ESSERS that ends in September of '23, so this year, that's specifically allocated for iReady materials. So this is an added bonus onto what we already currently have adopted.
I'll
Okay.
make the motion.
Have a motion on the floor by Ms. Burns, had a second on the floor. I thought I heard.
Well, I was going to ask one, but it's all right.
Okay, no, I apologize. Go ahead and ask Dr. Sawyer's.
Is this the only program that is available for this? Available is not the right word. Are there other choices for this kind of a program besides these people?
Yeah, there's a lot of diagnostic assessments that you can purchase with curriculum. Since we've already purchased the iReady mathematics curriculum, it makes sense for us to use what we already have been using. But there are tons of diagnostics out there for all different reasons.
And it's in the past, we've had some things like this that rank and file staff told me later, just, I've never used this, or y'all shouldn't have done that, or I just always try to avoid things like that, but, are you sure that, so the staff like this program and?
So this'll enable us to do some extra training with staff to add some intervention support, but it'll also allow us to diagnose students where they are, so we know where we can fill in the gaps, especially in reading.
Okay. What about once the ESSER funds are over? I guess it would have to be, find another source if we continue this another year.
We would, if we wanted to continue with the diagnostics for reading.
All right.
Yep.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we have a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second to the motion. Any other discussion or questions? Not hearing any, all in favor of using the extra money to purchase the iReady material that was presented to us, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we are going to do what?
I thought it was a tie.
No.
It was a tie, I broke the tie.
Oh, you did, all right, okay.
Because this is money that if we don't spend come next month, we lose it. And this has already been vetted by our group. And right now, we would be taken away from our kids based on what the presentation is if we don't use it, so.
Can we maybe at our next meeting get some small report or just a talk on how this program has gone?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If there's a tangible reason, though, that those that are at the negative, that we need to know something now.
Well, it's been 3 years with iReady, and we're still in the toilet with our scores, right?
We didn't have the iReady curriculum.
She just said, Dr. Sawyer, what's that?
This is Dr. Hoskins.
I understand that, but it's still the same, it's still within the same platform, right? iReady?
The curriculum is different. So we purchased the curriculum this year. So you have your diagnostics, which are your assessments, so the students take those things. Previously, students in mathematics had been, specifically in mathematics, had been going out for other resources because we didn't have a solid curriculum for math. We purchased the curricular piece aligned to North Carolina standards, and the diagnostic assessment is on the side. So now we can use them both in tandem to move students.
So we need technology for a teacher to be able to diagnose a student where they're failing. Is that what you're saying?
That's what diagnostic assessments do, yes. So the student will go in, they'll take a diagnostic assessment, and that assessment will be able to say that that student is at a second grade math level. And these are some standards and some areas where they need support. And we use them across the board for a lot of different reasons to get their level, right, to see where they're at. But it also allows us to fill in the gaps and to know what standards they have shortfalls on.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Hall's question was maybe just a more general conversation about, this is the reason why we chose iReady versus the other, tools that might be available. I would certainly be interested to hear that
Absolutely.
Whenever you have the opportunity.
I'll-
Not now.
I'll see what we have available.
I wouldn't mind hearing how it's going because I wish we were all in agreement on it is what that's where I'm going with it.
So I'll be able to get you some information on the iReady mathematics, and then as we progress through the school year with the iReady reading diagnostics, we'll be able to see where we're at with that as well, and we'll be able to provide you more information, absolutely.
I just sometimes with these type of things, it's not usually a split vote, so
Yeah.
I just
I'll add,
see everyone understand or be on the same page maybe is my only.
and I think it would be helpful also is the decision for iReady to add this was not made in isolation. This was pushed by our principals in our schools as well to give, they wanted to give their teachers access to this component in order to support them further, especially with our new curriculum, and that teachers have a lot on their plate, and so this is just an added bonus for them to make their lives a little bit easier. And so, but certainly we will work on gathering data throughout the year to show the success. What we hope to see is the success of this program for all readers, not just struggling readers.
And no local funds are being used for this. This is the ESSER money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you also, Dr. Sawyer, I believe I heard you say sometime before that any board member, if they just contact you, you'd be more than glad to take them on a visit to a school and
Absolutely.
show them. I know I had the opportunity to do that with some of your fine staff, and it's really eye-opening to go in the classroom and see the technology that they're using. So
There's a lot of new curriculum out K-8 right now, so, and science is coming next year, so absolutely.
So any of you on the board that would like to do that, please do so and stay and eat lunch and.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. At this time, we had added to the agenda was 9.7 bus sponsorships. That was brought up by Board Member Springer.
Yeah, so I wanted to provide some information, some research, what I found previously. I don't know if Mr. Taylor has seen any of this, but there's an allocation of 15 electric school buses in this region. Also,
9.7.
This is 9.7 bus sponsorships.
oh, I'm sorry, as it was.
No problem. But that's still your motion. Or your.
Okay. So the sponsorship of buses, I'm guessing, Mr. McPherson, you didn't find anything out about legal as far as what we can do for sponsorship on buses?
I did not.
Okay. So what I would say is I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor. What I would say is for the sponsorship on buses.
You might as well stay there because you're at the next.
You're
one.
next.
Still on you.
If we could propose to companies that want to advertise for the buses, set out a certain amount. I would also propose to Dr. Breelove to come up with some kind of indication of how much money it would cost to get a school bus wrapped or a section of the school bus, some type of sponsorship that they want to provide to advertise.
Sir, are you referencing the yellow buses?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm pretty sure there's a federal and a state standard that dictates all the markings that are on the bus.
Yeah.
Specifically, even the size of the lettering along the side, the size of the county that's printed, the number of LED lights that has to be in the tail light. I mean, all of those are very detailed specifications that all bus manufacturers
Have to follow.
in the nation in particular, I mean, maybe the world, I don't know if anyone else makes them,
Yep.
but
What about the bumper?
Yeah, what about the,
again, the stickers that are dictated for railroad crossings and stop arms are, again, dictated by the state
what about the white buses?
or the federal government. I am unsure about the white buses. I don't know that the criteria is so stringent since we actually own and operate those completely on our own. But I am more than
Mr.
willing to
McPherson, would you-
investigate any of
I would
that.
do
Bring something back to the board at the next meeting for information, please.
Is it?
Chairman Smith, you know, back when we first got on the board, you had an idea very similar to this, that we could possibly put advertisements on the side of the bus. And at the time, I thought, ooh, I don't know if that's going to fly or not, but I have to be honest with you. I can understand why you brought it up, Mr. Springer, because if we could do it, it could generate some revenue, but I could also understand where the state of North Carolina likes to keep their buses uniform, and so I can understand where they probably would not care for this. But it is thinking outside of the box, and I like that.
Yes, you have in mind like, kind of like it is in some of the gyms where you've got banners up there and.
Well, you got city buses. I mean, they
Yeah,
got
city
they got
buses have
LEDs running across the front windshield, right? I don't know we're not running city buses, right? But
sir.
there are a lot of blank spaces on that bus that
Yes,
we
sir.
wouldn't impede the state lettering or the numbers or stop sign, whatever. But Mr. McPherson, if you could get some information on that, I greatly appreciate it.
I will, what is the board's pleasure? I can either report back before the next board meeting or at the next board meeting.
Preferably before the next board meeting.
Before the next board meeting?
Yeah.
What's the consensus of the board?
That's fine with me if it's fine with the other board members.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
all right, before the next board meeting.
I would say, to the extent Mr. Taylor could contact DPI, or
Absolutely.
the state,
Absolutely.
maybe you could help Mr. McPherson bill us a
Sure.
little bit less for researching. Give him a jump start.
I know that the restrictions are not the same specifically for the buses. I mean, there are counties that actually have aqua blue buses, schools that have 2 lines down the side for the county colors and things of that nature. So I know that.
For activity buses.
The activity buses, there aren't the same requirements. I just don't know about the advertisement component. But there are buses, so I mean, I'm interested to find out as well.
I'm just looking at ways.
Sponsor bus, hire a teacher.
Sure, absolutely.
And I know school systems isn't made to generate income, however,
Right.
we are the largest employer in Pender County, and the county commissioners aren't doing us any favors keeping our budget cut. So,
Okay, if you can find out, work together as a team
Yes,
on
sir.
that, and let us know, because I know we can move forward on it, hopefully. All right, 9.8 was a motion of reconsideration. So, Mr. Springer, that was the one that you were going to bring up also?
yeah, we'll just go right to it. Duke Energy retains the right to battery at the end of the bus's useful life. Duke Energy also owns the charger and infrastructure for the program term. Did you know that, Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you said this is good for 2 years. What's going to happen after 2 years? I'm going to bring that back up.
What's going to happen after 2 years? We will receive the charging stations as our property for a charge of $1.
Charge of $1, okay.
Yes, sir.
Up to $215,000 of funding for electric school bus and associated infrastructure. Now, I've watched a lot of TV in my life, but anytime something says up to, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get that amount. Would you agree?
There's no economic impact on us as a school system to receive these 3 electric buses that we agreed to and the installation of the 3 charging stations that will be installed. Both entities, the state and Duke Energy, have confirmed that with the signed memorandum of agreement.
Did you fill out this Duke Energy form?
I filled out and the superintendent signed the memorandum of agreement after you and your peers approved the agreement for 3 of the EV buses.
I would like the board to see, if possible, the form that was filled out, sir, for the EV buses. It's got some information on there I think would be critical to the further decision of this EV bus
That
racket.
memorandum of agreement was in the board packet in which the request was made for the approval.
I'm looking at that right now, and it doesn't mention that the $1 you mentioned.
That was the follow-up conversation with Duke Energy, with Mr. Jim Polk, or Pock.
But it's not in the agreement. We have
Right,
to honor
sir.
that.
Well, you're right, sir. It's not in the agreement.
Right.
And we don't have to purchase them, I guess.
Well, I'm
I
with you,
think the
but
purchase
what you're
of-
telling us is Duke is going to sell us the charging stations. They're not going to charge us rent. They're going to just let us buy them for $1. But that's not in the agreement anywhere. If they were willing to do that, why wouldn't they obligate themselves in writing to do that?
I have the email from the Duke.
An email is not part of this
I
agreement.
understand.
No, I guess what I'm trying to say, Mike, is I cannot see or understand why Duke Power would give it to us for $1 when they got to be out there trenching lines, setting their power stations up for of course it'd be ours for 2 years, and then they're not wanting more than $1 to go out there and run power. And they're going to give us up to $215,000. That's not a guarantee. I mean, is that $215,000 including 3 buses and 3 power stations, all
No,
the labor?
sir. The buses are over $200,000 themselves. The infrastructure is being covered by them because it doesn't exceed their cost-benefit analysis approach to installing this. And then, as we talked about during that conversation, the vehicle-to-grid return on energy they're going to have. Once those buses reach max energy capacity, they then start trickling power back to the system. So they're getting income. They're not losing anything. To your point, they're not at a loss for sure for what's happening with the infrastructure installation.
My only point is if they were going to do it, it'd be in the agreement. It's like saying, well, you're buying a house, okay? If you're buying a house and there is an accessory building on the property and the owner says, well, I'm going to let you borrow this for free, but in 2 years I'm going to sell it to you for $1. But I'm not willing to put that in the purchase agreement between you and I for that house. Wouldn't that cause you some pause? I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make. The question begs no answer, but I'm just trying to make a point that if they were willing to do it, they'd put it in the agreement. That's all.
Yes, sir.
I was just reading
I'm
this
not
stuff.
sure why it wasn't in the agreement,
I would like to know the answer to that question.
and I will find that answer out. Yes, sir.
I appreciate it.
I think Mr. Springer just doesn't want us to be blindsided in 2 years by, they come up and, well, all right, we'll sell you this for $100,000 or whatever.
As he alluded to also, I don't want the county commissioners to look at us and say, hey, you're asking us for all this money and then you made this decision and, Duke's
Sure.
now coming after you.
Yes, sir.
I want them to have confidence that we're using this, money wisely.
Yes, sir.
And so I think that we need to do as much due diligence as we can, so I
I
support.
think the statement is in the grant itself, and that's where I need to do the research.
We were never provided a
and
copy of
get
that.
Sir?
All I have is the memorandum of agreement.
Right.
That's all I've been
Yes, sir.
provided as a board member to make this decision.
You're exactly right.
Right.
Is there any other comments or questions? I'm not sure if there will be a motion then. Is there anything else?
I say I make a motion to suspend the sponsorship, suspend the electric buses until we get further information.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to suspend.
Let me ask one question before we do. Do you have time to suspend it just temporarily until you can find this out to let mess up the program?
Well, that's going to be a legal question, sir. DPI was waiting to submit their purchase orders based on our agreement. That agreement was signed, submitted to them. They have now purchased, or they have submitted purchase orders for the 3 buses to be assigned to Pender County Schools.
Could we table this item until next month?
Well, good thing about it is it's on a first come, first served basis. That's what Duke Energy says.
Well, and the other thing too is, we're just trying to get answers to these questions, right? So if you could get answers to these questions and if Duke is willing to say, yeah, whatever we said in our email, we're willing to make a written amendment to the agreement that was signed on such date that was titled such that legally obligates us to sell this to you for $1, if that's indeed what they're interested in, that makes my concern go away.
Yes, sir.
So,
Absolutely.
we can do that.
I mean, we could probably finish this with a quick phone call like we did last time.
If you could get a hold of anybody right now.
Well, that's, yeah.
You'd probably be calling India at this time of night. Nothing wrong with calling India. It's
I'm
just,
talking about how, if we need to get this information before we vote yes or no on this, I'm talking about, like Friday or Thursday or,
There's a motion on the floor to suspend the purchase of or the accepting of these electric buses. Is there any other conversation, discussion, questions?
I'm going to vote to suspend it because, again, I don't know how long of a time frame we're talking about, so. So what do you want to do? You want to take this up again in about 3 or 4 days when
That's
we
fine.
get some answers?
Yep.
Or you want to wait a month?
how long would it take to get the information, Mike?
I will probably have the information within a few days. My concern is that legally, the memorandum of agreement could be an issue for us as a district. That would be in Mr. McPherson's domain. It's a signed agreement with multi-parties, which, again, I'm not a legal person.
That's all right. We'll just say, if you want to pause then, and just we'll turn the floor over to Mr. Pearson to enlighten us.
So, concerns I have, we have put something into motion with this memorandum of understanding. What effect you saying I paused this for a few days actually has legally ambiguity? For me, I have no idea. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know what effect us even emailing DPI and saying we are pausing our consideration of the purchase, despite the fact we've already agreed to purchase these EV buses, what effect that would actually have, if any. But a different question that I think would be something for the board that I need to find out the answer to is, okay, what if you decide you don't want, in this reconsideration at a later date, if you decide you don't want the EV buses? I feel like I don't have a good answer for what will happen.
I asked that last month. We still don't have an answer.
Well, I can give you an answer if you want. If you've signed an agreement.
Well,
there's going to have to be some type of, I would imagine, and I'm just a shade tree lawyer myself, so.
Well, I think it'll be up to DPI how they want to deal with that, whether they move those buses onto someone else or they somehow penalize you. And so that's up to your regulatory agency. I don't know that they will or will not do something. They may just move those 3 buses along to somebody else. They may just say, hey, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. Because once again, they have the ability to put money into your account and also pull money out of your account. Because they're the state of North Carolina and they have this wonderful power.
Is this a concern that's been brought up, do you know of? And other you probably don't, but is this something that has hit a red flag? Because I would imagine something like this, that more people besides just us would have.
According to the directors of transportation who are currently operating the EV buses, they have not shared any of the concerns that are being brought forth today. I can reach out to those and get.
No, there's no need. I just was wondering if they're, in that community of people, yeah.
Mr. McPherson,
I can ask
how
specific
binding-
questions if that's what you would like.
Have any of them accepted the
binding would it be?
transfer of the property for $1? That's a question I think would be.
That's a good question.
Not particularly binding, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, we have multiple conversations, board members, so let's pause for a moment. That's fine. Ms. Burns, I recognized you first, I heard you, and then we'll go over to Mr. Cordero, so let's, go ahead, you're asking the attorney.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was asking Mr. McPherson, what would it be, how binding is something in an email?
It depends on exactly what the email says.
Yes, sir.
And so for lots of reasons, if, we're able to somehow establish that the intent of Duke was to let us buy it for $1, I have a hard time somehow incorporating that by reference into a contract that's already been signed by the parties. I think that's a hard argument. I think Duke may honor it because they're a large corporation and they don't want any egg on their face, maybe. But I think legally it wouldn't be sufficient to constitute an amendment to an agreement that's already been signed and to provide you an option.
And was this not already being funded by a grant from Volkswagen?
Right.
It was from that lawsuit.
Yes.
Okay,
So the money is technically not coming from, the initial funds to purchase the EV buses is not coming directly from Pender County. It is via a
Exactly.
grant. It is a pilot program. But at the end of the day, I think the concern I'm hearing from Mr. Springer and Mr. Cordero is that what about the unintended consequences of installing said items on your dirt and any potential, we'll call them supplemental costs that could come forward at a later date, right? And what I think is clear is that Duke is committed in writing, at least via email, that they're willing to sell us the charging stations in 2 years for $1. I think the point to be made is if they're willing to incorporate that into the memorandum of understanding to say, you said you're going to give us an option to buy, let's reduce that to writing so that we actually have that in writing so it's enforceable. Is that, am I sort of getting Mr.
Yes, and I would
Cordero?
lead with that. I wouldn't necessarily call up DPI and tell them, hey, the board wants to get out of the agreement. I would just say, hey, Duke made this promise to us in an email. Could they just memorialize that in writing? And that would be great.
Would you be interested, Mr. Springer, for a friendly amendment then, instead of just completely pulling the plug, to do what he just said, to have that so you have some assurance on that dollar amount in 2 years?
Well, what I would say is Duke Energy retains the right to battery at the end of the bus's useful life, right? So this salesman that got up here said that the battery was good for how long?
20, I don't want to give an answer, but it was
20 years, I
it was
think.
20 years.
20 years on the battery.
At the end of its useful life, it really has no use for Pender County Schools.
Right.
We're turning it into DPI anyways.
Right.
I don't care what they do with it because they're going to give us a new bus.
But are
after
they going
20
to
years.
charge us to dispose of that bus or its batteries?
Well, they don't charge us now to dispose of our yellow buses. We actually put them across the street and try to sell them to farmers, security people, and things of that nature.
Yep.
So again, they've outlived any value that we have with them. Because when we do sell them, we send the money back to the state of North Carolina anyway.
I think we need to,
Duke took the battery out, we would still have the bus, and we could sell that as scrap metal or whatever the case may be.
And at that time, probably a whole new technology, so.
yeah, we could wait on new technology to come out and then do it.
No, I'm talking about in 20 years.
Yes,
That's-
sir.
yeah.
I was talking about the new batteries. They already said they're working on new batteries. Is that not what they said?
They did,
Okay.
they're working, that's what they said, but I haven't seen their manufacturing.
Right.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. If there's no amendment to the motion, then we'll take a vote. Was there amendment? No? Okay. So let's take a vote. All in favor of scrapping this reconsideration, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed?
No.
Okay, so I did not hear, was there a vote, Mr. Springer?
You're saying to scrap the reconsideration?
Is that what we're talking about doing?
No, I thought we were
We're talking
going,
about doing away with, to scrap the doing away with those electric buses. It was a motion of reconsideration, so,
I'm going to vote aye.
okay.
Okay.
I think there's some confusion on the motion.
Yeah, I think there is.
What was your motion? Because you're the one that made the motion, right, Mr. Springer?
Motion to reconsider for the EV buses.
Right.
Well, what I have written is motion to suspend the EV buses until PCS can get additional information. That's what I have written down
Okay.
as the motion. Is that your intended motion? Or is that not?
Yep.
Motion to suspend.
Motion to suspend.
Okay.
I'd like to know till when, though, and when do you expect to have?
He said by the end of the week.
You do it in 7 business days, Mike?
I would hope so, yes, sir.
I mean, I'm just trying to give you time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 7 business days is.
Suspend.
I bet Duke will answer. So the question is, when do we take this issue up again if we say no right now?
In 7 business days.
You can have a special call meeting as long as you give 48-hour notice.
That's right. So the motion, so Mr. Springer, make sure I get the corrected motion. Motion to suspend for 7 business days the EV buses until PCS can get an additional information
Within 7 days.
within 7 days. So 7 days twice.
I don't think suspend should be the right word in here.
Okay.
What word do you want to go
What
with?
word would you like to change down?
I think we should change having something to do with the agreement where they can guarantee that we can purchase this stuff in
Why
whatever
don't
year.
we just table this until
Yeah,
we
good
have
idea.
another meeting? That way, it gives Mr. Taylor some time to find out to get answers to our questions.
Perfect.
And we don't have to take a vote right
That's
now
right.
until we have all.
We have a
of
motion
the-
and a second on the floor. Am I
Okay.
right with parliamentary procedure that if that's the case, we're in the middle of a vote?
Unless the motion maker withdraws the motion, that's your next.
Motion maker, do you want to withdraw a motion?
What am I withdrawing the motion on?
What you said, that you don't want, I mean, she's asking to table it into 7 days.
Okay.
Instead of
Just to
just
give them some
completely,
time.
Okay.
just to
Yep.
completely, so he withdraws the motion.
I'd like to make another motion. My motion would be that we direct staff to obtain a written assurance from Duke that they're going to honor their commitment that they made in an email of selling this charging station to us for $1 after 2 years. And if you're able to do that, we can move forward. If not, that we need to schedule a special meeting to discuss it.
Sir.
Okay.
That,
Yep.
Mr. Springer, does that cover your concerns?
It does.
Bill's motion?
Yep, it does.
And I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion?
I have
Not
nothing.
hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Board members, were there any other amendments that need to be made to the agenda before we move on to our number 10? Not hearing any, then it's time for our comments from board members. We'll start with you, Mr. Cordero, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Just a couple or a few questions. So first, Ms. Nellman, can you confirm, from my research, the ESSERS funds can be used for safety, is that right? School safety? Okay. I just wanted to see if Mr. Taylor and or Dr. Breedlove, I've seen there's, in my tours of some of the schools, there's some non-operational cameras, and I think that's a great tool that we have. And so to the extent that we haven't planned out the use of all these ESSERS funds, I would like to research replacing those cameras for security purposes. You have a comment, right?
We just did have a class on that at our last meeting, and they are advising not to use them for cameras.
Okay.
And there is a 25% requirement to use the funds on learning loss specific. Okay?
So not eligible for cameras, essentially, is what you're
That's
saying, right?
correct. And that's
Okay.
that's
And
a
then-
new thing.
There's an update on the cameras.
Okay.
Sir, was this Mr. Taylor? I just want to make
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We actually purchased a large number, I can't remember the exact number, with our school safety grant that we had last year.
Got it.
We're waiting on the budget approval. I heard this morning it'll be September. They will reissue that safety grant, and we're going to go
Okay,
all in.
perfect. Great.
We did not attempt the grant at the level we needed to last August. So we're really excited about that grant being re-released, and we know we have some issues. We've been working to replace some, but if you have specific, I mean, I would hope that the principals who shared with you that cameras weren't working, that they're putting that in a work order for us. 'Cause
Right.
if we don't know, we definitely can't.
Yeah, I just wanted to see about the possibility of using, well, ESSERS funds sounds like no, but grant funds, yes, which is great.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
thank you.
Again, write a $500,000 to $1 million request, and hopefully getting a tremendous amount of cameras.
Perfect. Two other things are just relating to the website. I don't know if we need to have an agenda item maybe in the next meeting or whatever, but I know that I've requested several times that we do have a website for our meetings, and it's gotten a lot better, to Mr. Lawson's credit. But the meeting packet is still not on the website. And I just want to reiterate, I think it's been at least a couple months now that I've requested that we go through a process where, what the entire packet, not like the HR stuff or the stuff in private, in closed session, but the materials that the board sees should be available to everybody that's watching this, to everybody that's in this room. They're all public records. So it is beyond me why we have not done that yet, and I would like to see some action taken on that. So I just wanted to express that. And then I would say the same thing about the solicitations. I know that Ms. Nolan, with her background, could certainly, whatever, school that you think is a good example of the procurement website, if we could just put those solicitations out for all vendors to see, I think it would be great to allow them the opportunity to just compete to the extent that they would be able to submit responses to solicitations in the time frame that we specify. That's all I have, sir.
And thank you. To speak, since we've had a staff member that was questioning on that, if it's all right, I would like to speak on your behalf. If you want to speak up, you can. But the reason why that has not been implemented is because one board member cannot direct staff into doing what you're asking.
100%.
And I apologize if that's not that was not given to you in board training. But if that's something that you are passionate about and would like to happen, it can be added to the future agendas, and we can do whatever what the board wants. But one board member will not be able to just call and direct a staff member to do something. So that's why that hasn't been done yet.
I appreciate the clarity.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hall, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Mr. Springer, do you have any comments?
Yeah, just Craig, happy birthday to you, and I wish the teachers and principals of the schools, as well as the SROs, a good school year. That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you. Ms. Burns, do you have any comments?
No, sir, not this time.
Okay. At this time, just a few comments. Mr. Lawson, thank you for what you are doing behind the scenes, and we do wish you a very happy birthday. I'm glad that you're part of our school system, and being here tonight on your birthday, what a wonderful testament it is to your dedication and commitment to us, and also to getting your paycheck. So we're glad of that. We love you, Craig Lawson, so he's a good guy. I also wanted to say that there was a quote that I read recently by Will Rogers that said, "Don't let yesterday take up too much time of today." And I really want to encourage our teachers and principals as we're going into this new school year that there's going to be a lot of things that possibly has happened in the past. Realize that's the wonderful thing about the calendar. You have turned the page of it. We have been given a fresh slate. And so I encourage you, if there's something that you're in need of, to please reach out and let your cabinet know, because you've got a wonderful team of folks that are trying to work very hard and diligently in that. I also want to take a moment to just simply say thank you to all the work that is being done with the new school bond that was approved, and I know land that's been talked about, and so we're hopefully going to be in the right direction for it, and soon be some big announcements concerning that as well. We're not a perfect school system by no means. I'll be the first to admit that as a board chair. I'm not a perfect board chair. No one on this board is perfect. But I will say this, I believe that our school system does have a passion of wanting to do what's right. And at any time that if I ever do anything to embarrass us or any of the other board members, we might misspeak, I do apologize, because we do want to honor our workers and those behind the scenes, because we know it takes every one of us to make sure that education is top priority. So thank you very much for what you do. At this time, then, we're going to look at our board attorney and gain some wisdom from him.
All right, so a couple of important announcements. The Federal Department of Education has made a declaration. They will be releasing their new Title IX regulations in October. They have moved this deadline multiple times at this point. You may ask, why is that relevant to this school board and to your K-12 setting? Well, the Title IX regulations that were implemented over the past 6 years have been more applicable to how you investigate any allegations of sexual harassment or sex discrimination in the K-12 setting. So as those regulations change, both this board and the staff and administration have to be trained on how to go about investigating any of those claims. And you'd be surprised at how quickly something can sort of devolve or evolve into an alleged Title IX complaint. So I want you to have that on your radar, because after October, we'll be having a professional development for this board. Once you've had an opportunity to pick your date, and it'll be a nice training, and it won't be particularly long, but I think it's important for you guys to hear at least a part of what your administrators are hearing as some of the final deciders in several of these instances. Additionally, I would encourage you to pay attention to the state budget. It is still not passed, but we do have an agreement on the tax structure, which honestly is sort of the biggest hinge point. We now know the pot of money that's going to be divided up. There was disagreement between the House and Senate on how much money. There was a big difference in what the House wanted to spend versus what the Senate wanted to spend. They've come to an agreement on the pot of money. Now it's divvying it up, frankly. So September is what we've heard. Additionally, there are going to be several veto overrides taking place on August 16th, is my understanding. This has been reset a couple times, because the first was supposed to take place this coming Monday, or this past Monday on the 7th. It's been rescheduled to the 16th. So there are several bills that are vetoed that have substantial effect on this board and every other board in the state of North Carolina. So when that happens, if it happens, I'll be sending out an alert to you guys about those bills, because I really do think several of those could have severe or positive impacts depending on the bill we're talking about. The last thing I want to say is a point of, I don't necessarily want to say pride, but a point of, order, which is your fine and forfeitures year to date that have been collected is $187,576.90. That is as of today. To put it in context, last year's fines and forfeitures that the district collected was $313,026.49. So we're on track about where we normally are with fines and forfeitures, but it is a consistent stream of income to help alleviate some cost that the district experiences each year. So thank you very much. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. McPherson. At this time, we'll ask our superintendent if he has any closing words.
Yes, sir. Well, here we are, 20 days from the start of the school year, and our schools that are on a traditional calendar. All summer long, we've been working very hard to prepare our schools for our teachers and our students to return. Our teachers, administrators across the district, our district staff, we are all extremely excited to have our students back for a safe and enjoyable start on August the 28th. I ask that the students, the parents, and our community members be patient with us, especially the first week of school when it comes to transporting our students to and from school. Just like anything else, we have a lot of new students and bus drivers, and so that first week of school is kind of ironing out the kinks, but we are diligently preparing. Hopefully there won't be any setbacks, but in case there are some delays, just want to be patient with our school system. As you may know, Pender Lee School is a year-round school. It's already in session. It's been in session for several weeks now. Also this week, Pender Early College started back. Both schools have had a great start to the school year. In our traditional schools, this is the last week of our summer bridge programs, which wrap up our extensive and productive summer learning programming that started the first week that we were out of school. and has continued on all throughout the summer. I want to thank all of our students who participated, and certainly want to thank our staff who worked this summer to make these summer learning opportunities available to many of our students across the district. As we prepare for the new school year, the entire cabinet and I have been meeting with each individual principal to review their school goals and plans for the year. For example, when a principal comes in, they discuss with us what went well last year. And we start off with that element. It sets the tone for the meeting because those are the expectations. You know, we work to continue to do the things that go well, and we work to improve the things that went less than well. And we move on into goals. We look at an academic goal or multiple goals. We look at culture goals for their school, and then we finish with a school safety and security goal. And then at the very end of the meeting, the question that is asked to our principals is, what do you need from us to accomplish these goals? And this gives the opportunity for the principal, who has already been working with their site-based teams, then to come up with a list of items that they need in order to accomplish their goals. That's how the process works, and they have spent the entire summer working with their teams to develop these goals of school improvement for their individual schools. So those have gone very well, been very well received by our principals, and certainly has been eye-opening for our cabinet, because the entire cabinet spends that time in learning about each of our schools so that we're on the same page and being able to have those supports in place for each school. It is without question that in Pender County Schools, we firmly believe that every student can find success in our schools. One of the most basic elements to the student academic success is attendance. Last year, Pender County Schools had a 92.7% attendance rate. As a superintendent, I just want everyone to know that we must improve our attendance across the district. We aim for no less than 95%. That is a good number to have. Certainly, if students get sick, we don't want them coming to school. But prior to COVID, 95% is the mark in which all school systems operated, and we have to move on. All right, we expect our students to attend school. We expect our parents to have our students attend school, and so we, as a district, our teachers and schools are ready, and we want to see every Pender County student in attendance every single day. The fewer days that students are absent from school, the more success those students will have. Once again, school begins on August the 28th. We look forward to seeing all of our students in the coming weeks. For those that are on our campuses right now, especially our middle and our high schools, we already have students on campus because they are starting their athletic practices. In the coming weeks, we also have, you'll see them starting our band, having our band weeks, getting in preparation for upcoming games. With the late start of the school year, we actually have football games before school starts, and that's just the way it is and how the calendar is set up. But right now, our campuses are buzzing with students on there, and that's an exciting time. This is a great time of the year, and we are really excited for our students to return. Just a couple of quick dates and reminders. Kindergarten orientation is August 24th at 3 p.m. We also have elementary open houses August 24th for all elementary from 4 to 6 p.m. Middle schools and Pender Innovative Learning Academy August 23rd from 4 to 6. And the open house dates for high schools is August 24th from 4 to 7 p.m. Monday, August 14th, optional work day. Our amazing staff will be back on our campuses across the board. Wednesday, August 16th, 8:30 a.m., beginning teacher orientation at Cape Fear Elementary. Board members, please feel free to stop by and meet our new members of the team. And that's going to be fun, and it's going to be great seeing those members joining Pender County Schools. Tuesday, August 22nd, Pender County Schools has our kickoff conference it's a big day for our county. It's at Heidi Trask High School. All of our teachers, administrators, everybody will be at Heidi Trask High School for that kickoff. Monday, August 28th, like I said, traditional Pender County Schools begin, and then September 12th, 6 p.m., our regular board meeting for September. And just like everybody else, Craig, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
All right. And board members, this concludes superintendent's update. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Breedwell. If there's no other business of the board, is there a motion to go in closed session?
I'll make the motion, but when we first do closed session, if everybody's okay with it, for about 5 minutes, I want just us and the attorney. If everybody, is there any legal reason we can't do that? Okay. I move that the Board of Education enter into closed session subject to advice from the attorney pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege to consider confidential student matters as provided in NCGS 143.318.11A1 and the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act 20 United States Code 1232G and NCGS 115C-402.
Have a motion on the floor for closed session. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, we're in closed session. Can I have a motion to come out of closed session, please?
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Hall to come out of closed session. May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 This time, can we have a motion to approve 13.1,
Make a motion to approve 13.1.
the human resource report? Have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Is there any other business before we adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to consider the renewal of the Synergistics contract.
I'll second.
Okay, we're making a motion to amend the agenda 14.2.
Yes, sir.
Effective December, correct?
Well, this is just.
This is just to amend the agenda right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So have a motion to amend the agenda to add, did you say the termination of?
To consider renewal or non-renewal of the
Okay.
Synergistics contract.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Have a second on the motion?
I did.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Hall. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda 14.2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. This time we're at 14.2. Mr. Cordero, since you made the motion, then I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion that the board notify through its attorney, Synergistics, that we intend not to renew our contract at the next opportunity.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion concerning that?
I think we've discussed this in the past, but I just think that the $750,000 a year we're spending with them is not a wise expenditure of public monies, and that's the reason that I would recommend and vote for non-renewal.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Recommendations have not been provided as me and Ms. Burns were in strategic planning committee, as stated that they would.
Okay. And when does the contract, is it December when the contract ends?
Yep.
Sometime in December, yes, sir.
Sometime in
Yes, sir.
December. So we're saying that after the contract expires, then it would not be renewed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion, board members? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other amendments to the agenda? If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion, have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any